7 o'clock.
It is.
Good evening. Call the school committee to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of 2 sets of minutes. We'll do one at a time, and they were sent to you and also at your place. So will be April 9th. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, okay. Lori, any corrections, omissions? Deletions? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? And abstentions? Okay. April 27th meeting.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Lori seconded. Again, we have it electronic, as well as the draft was sent to you and also at your place. Any questions, comments, concerns, additions, deletions? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? And abstentions. If the committee does not mind, I know that we have several items this evening. One is a presentation that Lee's subcommittee has looked at as the solar perspective of the ports, what do they call them, ports?
I guess we can call them that.
Ports or something like that. So if there's no objection, I'd like to take that first. Seeing and hearing none. Because before we go, thank you for the other night. Thank you for your adjusting the calendar and dealing with the a lot on the agenda, and so it was a very good meeting Tuesday night on the demographic study. So and a lot of good questions. So I appreciate everyone's input, and that's why we didn't think it was a good way to do it all tonight. So thank you. Maureen,
Well, I would just ask Lee would like to introduce the gentleman who will be here from Brightergy. Brightergy. I know we've met with them a couple of times before regarding some of the kind of carport sort of solar facilities. So Lee would like to introduce the people who get started.
Well, Craig, why don't you make your own introduction? You guys are pretty good at that.
Thank you very much. He's going to walk through a deck, where I guess where's the appropriate place to stand so we can address.
Yeah, not a problem. Here is good. You're all set. Up here, you need to computer actually play the video first.
Okay.
Mike, you next to him? I always ask. You know people with things like that.
Alright guys, thank you very much for having Bill and myself here. I'm Craig Dwyer with Brightergy. I'm Senior Sales Director for the Northeast, and this is Bill Mirabile. He sits on the Executive Management Team. But we've been in discussions with the Quabbin Regional School District for a while, since last fall, and evaluating the feasibility of solar panels on the sites here, and specifically solar parking canopies as it would apply to the high school. So you can go ahead and play the video and see what this might look like on a school roof here.
Is there sound to it?
That's okay if we don't have sound. You can kind of get the idea. The panels are put up here and on the roof, 0 penetrations, it's ballasted, but what you can see there, if you pause it, you can actually take a look at how these might look in the parking lot. Yeah, sure. Sorry about that. So, yeah, if we take a look right here, guys, this is what we're considering for the Quabbin the Quabbin Regional School District High School. So we ran into a situation, I mean, after this past winter, we all know the roof situation can be a little tough in New England, especially with snow load. But more than that, not all areas of the roof are necessarily new enough, right? So you're looking at the expected life of solar panels being 30 plus years. And these power purchase agreements, as it goes for the school, it's usually about a 20-year agreement. So you don't want to put them on a roof that's old. However, it doesn't always make sense to lay out a whole bunch of capital to re-roof when you've still got a perfectly good functioning roof up there. So Massachusetts put this program in place last year to help us with the economics on solar parking canopies and incentivize developers like us to work with school districts like yourself. And the way this functions is Brightergy actually owns and operates the solar panels on the site. And as a result, we sell the clean electricity to the school district. And so, similar if you could to locking into gas, back in 1990 at $1 a gallon, it's a hedge on your electricity prices for a piece of your portfolio. You can get a couple different views here of what's on the roof. This is actually this is for the Grafton High School. They recently just went out to bid 25A, and they'll be deciding their vendor in early June. So generally with the bidding process with these, you have to go either Mass General Law 30B or 25A, request for qualifications. You can generally get out to bid and back in about 45 days, but since it is a construction project on site, even though it doesn't require any capital outlay from the school district, it still does have to go out to bid. So to move into a little bit about us, I know some of you guys in the room know Bill and I better than others, but Brightergy today, we're about 100 employees. So we are based over in Charlestown. We're actually in Cambridge in the Innovation Center over there in Kendall Square, but we just signed a 5-year lease over in Charlestown, thanks to Bill. So we're growing the team, and we've been commercial and municipal focused. So we don't do residential, and we also don't do the big solar farms that you see out there either. People we work with are generally around middle school, high school size customers, and that can be either commercial, tax exempt, or municipal. And we've done about 1,300 projects in the past 3 years, and over 400 of those clients have been school districts. And so if we take a look at some of these designs here, there are many different ways that you can rack these, and typically after you apply for interconnection, post bidding and selecting a vendor, your vendor, Brightergy, if we're lucky enough to win the bid, we'll apply for interconnection. We'll walk through the various different design examples, and the more add-ons that we add to the structure, like lighting beneath, or if we want to make them a little bit higher so that the plows can pass beneath, if we use a special kind of plowing here. There are different types of parking canopies, different vendors, and those different vendors have different costs associated with them. So, the more premium that you want the structure, it'll increase the energy rate a little bit. But the nice part is, in Massachusetts right now, independent of what you do with the parking structure, whether it's the simplest or the most robust structure you have, you're still looking at an energy rate that's at least 30% less than what you're currently paying for power. So that's pretty significant savings, and as we know, the agreement you have with the utility company right now isn't much of an agreement. So they are subject to a volatile market. We're heavily reliant on natural gas as a region, and over the next 10 years, until we get a pipeline built to supply both the residential heating demand in the winter and our big peaking gas power plants, we could see some volatile prices. So this is a way to provide clean energy, also have covered parking, shield the cars from the elements for staff and for students. And at this time, for the next year and a half, we have the opportunity to work on this project and save the school district a significant amount of money. these are just some other examples of various structures across the Northeast from our vendors. So you'll see you can do actually the single rows and or double rows, as you'll see in the bottom corner. They also come with LED lights beneath, because we're going to remove the actual lighting fixtures where it's appropriate and use that electricity that's already there, that electrical connection, to run it up and wire so we get underlit canopies like that, so they can really look very nice, I think. I'm a little biased, but So if we look at, there is a relatively new roof on one of the sites, but to stick to the parking canopy sites here, this is the high school. This is about 1,000 kilowatts, or what we call a megawatt of solar. So if you were to put this on the ground and just lay it all out, it's about 4 acres fenced in. If you were to put it up on the roof, it's about 100,000 square feet of roof space. But up here in the Northeast, this is going to produce about 1.25 million kilowatt hours per year. If we were down closer to the equator, we might get like 1.8 million kilowatt hours per year. The neat thing about the technology, I mean, you're going to get 30 plus years out of the panels themselves. Again, it's a 20-year agreement, and at the end of 20 years, we fully come and remove the system, including the structures, and restore the sites to normal. However, if you want, you can upgrade the system, get new panels, but I mean, the panels at the end of 25 years are still going to be producing about 88% of what they were originally. So if you think about that just for technology, solar technology in general, that's an exciting thing, because at the end of 25 years, we're still going to have a use for these panels. This isn't like something like a nuclear reactor where you have to bury it in a pool next to the big facility. These can actually be used for roads, roofing tiles. We'll see the creative ideas that come up in 25 years, but it's a long-lasting technology. So some of the frequently asked questions. Well, I guess, first we'll go into, I guess, just so we can see kind of the pricing and what this could look like to the district. So currently the energy rate is about 14 cents, and that's all in, so supply plus distribution. And conceptually, you think about solar, Brightergy would be making the energy on site, but we also own the conduit that's going to be trenched across the parking lot and actually hardwired into the electrical service. So we get both supply and delivery, so we get to cut into that full 14 cents. So everything you could buy from the solar panels on site, including the structures built and everything, would come out to about 9 cents for a project of this size. So it's a 36% discount to what you'd be purchasing from the utility. And every year, so it's got a fixed rate schedule, increases 2% per year for the 20-year term. But if you look at that, you can see at the bottom, that's about $73,000 in the first year that it would save the district. And that's, again, with zero capital outlay. So if we extrapolate this over time, you can see the utility rate, we start that at 14 cents. And historically, you'll see that a figure of about 5% increasing in utility bills. I mean, utility bills haven't gotten smaller, and even though they have this kind of trend in New England here, so I've been up in New England for the past 8 years. I grew up in Northborough myself, and then went down to school in Pennsylvania, and they actually have a solar program starting up down there, so I got into the business, and then came back up to Massachusetts, and kind of found my roots again when they started this whole solar program. So basically, you can see like pretty much across the Northeast that prices just increase in general. Here in New England, we've got a nice little trend. In the winter, they jack the rates up really high, get everybody really scared coming up for winter peak season. And then in the spring, they give you a little bit of relief. And then back in the winter, they jack it up again. And so it's the cyclical thing. But if you watch it year over year, it creeps up. So you'll find 5% year over year is a pretty good number. Now, if you look at the solar power purchase agreement rate, or PPA rate right there, that dollar per kilowatt hour column, that goes up. It's completely predictable. It's 2% year over year. You can bank on it. That doesn't change. So as you can see, if you can envision 10 years out in 2026, right, after 10 years after commissioning the system, the grid rates could be at 22 cents almost. if you look at the end of the 20-year term, grid rates could be almost 35 cents. When now we look at the solar rate, solar is literally 13 cents. You're buying that solar kilowatt hour for 13 cents. And that's, if you look, lower than what you started paying for energy in year one. So if we get to some of the frequently asked questions here, to address those, typical clearing height of these structures. You're looking at generally 11 feet on the low side, 16 feet on the high side. We can adjust these accordingly for school buses to pass beneath, tractor trailers. Some of the things we take into consideration are, where are trash trucks coming on site? Where do people generally congregate? Where do school buses need to pass? Who plows your parking lot? We need to have a snow removal plan for these. How's the structure connected to the facility? It's trenched underground to the facility, and we own that responsibility and all the conduit that's going to take that power to your meter. Are these suitable for northeast snow loads? Everybody that had one in prior to this year would say yes, they have to be. So, yeah, these things can hold, I've got pictures of them out at REI in Framingham with 10 feet of snow up on the roof, and they hold. They have snow guards on the edges of them that break up the snow as it's coming down. These structures are built to last, all steel, concrete footers. Something should go wrong, during the agreement term. That's similar to other items in your parking lot right now. Hitting a fire hydrant, hitting one of the light posts that's out there right now. You need to dodge expensive structures that are in the parking lot. That's true with any of the structures in your parking lot. So be covered under general liability insurance. You can monitor the solar panels. So I mentioned we're almost 100 people at Brightergy. We have software developers in-house now that have built out a platform for us to actually monitor these solar panels. They're doing a whole bunch of other cool stuff in our lab too, of how to monitor the real-time energy demand in buildings, predict peak hours, and actually control your air conditioners from the computer and from a mobile phone. So these are going to be some neat things that we roll out over the course of this summer and fall that we're pretty excited about at Brightergy. But in the meantime, in the App Store for Brightergy already is our Present app that's on our platform. And so this actually, we put a kiosk that goes in the high school lobby, plasma TV, and it runs our software on there, but you can see what the carbon offset is, you can see what the real-time production of it is, lifetime production, and better yet, that can be downloaded off for the students to look at. And so a lot of these systems and developers come with an educational package with it. We have what's called Brighter Classroom. A Brighter Classroom is unique to anything in the industry. It's a K-12 Common Core Standards curriculum for energy education. So everything from like how a photovoltaic cell works to different forms of energy, kinetic versus potential. But this runs through a full lesson plan, and Common Core Standards is a big deal. We worked hard for that one. And we did that by hiring educators. So we've got an internal program support team that actually flies out to each installation that we do and works with the science department to make sure that this isn't just like a 250-page binder and CD-ROM that sits on a shelf. I think the classroom component is a great part of it, but our head program manager, Allie Reynolds, used to be a third-grade science teacher, and she was saying, Craig, literally, if you told me I had to pack one more thing into the science curriculum over the course of the year, I would have laughed you out of the room. Until I came to work at Brightergy, and now she runs our program. So we had a couple different perspectives on it. She's one of them, and she's fantastic. So you can monitor the production of the solar panels, but it's worked into the curriculum very nicely. And our electric vehicle charging stations, a lot of us have seen like the Teslas and Chevy Volts on the road these days. Pretty neat stuff. It's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, though. You think about buying them. You pretty much want to know that you don't have to only charge it at your home. So this is a nice way to encourage staff to start expanding the electric fleet in town, and you could put electric vehicle charging stations on for an additional cost if it's something of interest. at this point, I'll take any questions you guys have, or I'll move into sort of how we would approach next steps.
Questions? Yes.
Yeah, has anybody here seen one of these things? And I'm asking because your pictures look fine, and yet the ones I've seen, people call me from these companies. Oh yes, we want to put one on your land, and they don't call back, but I was interested until I saw the one over by the Barry Rod and Gun Club, which was just ugly as the devil. And a few of these others, they're really ugly. Now, these don't look so bad, but has anybody here ever seen one of these from this?
Yeah,
What do you
I've
think?
seen this application, and they're not, they look like this, they're not.
So they're okay?
Yeah, they're in a parking lot already, so it's not like the parking lot's a pretty area anyway.
Yeah.
These, they fit right in and they provide nice cover.
Well, they seem nice, it's just, you know what I mean about the one over
Yeah,
there?
those are ugly. These are much better.
Good.
And actually, I would add that the state or the DOER, the Public Utilities Commission, whoever regulates the discounts that can be offered for solar, have sort of self-corrected this issue because they offer guys like Brightergy a better deal if they build something on a brownfield site than they do if you stick it out on a, what had been a verdant pasture someplace. So that's why these can be, relatively speaking, more attractive. There are rooftop or over a parking lot than if you tried to
Well, that's a comfort, thank you.
use verdant land.
And to address your question too, I mean, you've seen, just in the video we had before and sort of, what we've done. If you look on our website and some of the case studies and clients on there, we genuinely want to build a long-term partnership. Solar is just one of the arrows in our quiver, right? So, and it is a long-term partnership. It's a 20-year agreement. So you want a strong company that's looking for a long-term partnership, and we want this to be as aesthetically pleasing as possible because we want some really good pictures, for the case study. So it's in our best interest to make sure that we do a very nice job and work with you guys through the design phase to make sure we get an excellent product.
Do all the models move or adjustable?
That's a good question. Everything in the Northeast, for the most part, whether it's on a roof, ground, or in a parking lot, is going to be fixed.
It's going to be fixed.
It's all fixed. And the reason being up here in the Northeast, so the tilted ones, they call them tracking systems.
Okay.
The trackers will work better if you're in the desert and make more financial sense if you're in the desert because you get from horizon line to horizon line, right? So you can literally pick up the sun when it gets first over the horizon in the morning to the other side because there's no tree line. Here we've got the big deciduous tree line and it doesn't make as much financial sense to do it that way. So these will all be fixed.
On angles.
Correct. So they, depending on which way you face them, these ones, you'll see these go in like that, and that's done for water drainage, for snow capture, preference of the aesthetic too. This one's done probably angled in the southern direction that way, so if you can aim them south, then you catch the sun transversing east to west across the sky, so you get better production, bang for your buck. And the more production we can get, the more you can purchase from it at a cheaper rate, so it's in everybody's best interest. Then there are some that are also relatively flat. Like you see here, this is a slight depression in the middle, but those are similar model. It's facing south as well.
What about the other side of our middle school, which is relatively covered by the building?
Yeah, if you guys were, so if that's a site that you guys want to consider, I would recommend including that in the request for qualifications. And, we'd look at that and see what the efficiency would be from that location. But everything's we have to make sure, we want to own and operate it, so we want to make sure that the places we're putting it, we're going to get, the
Well,
right
where are you
return.
proposing putting it? I assume the parking lot out here.
Well, preliminary designs, so we haven't even filed for utility interconnection yet. We haven't filed for utility interconnection yet because that's when we need to start spending resources. It costs money to apply to National Grid and hold your spot in the
So that's the design you're proposing there?
So this is proposed like footprint, if you will, right? This is what we could potentially do on site. But we would get far more in depth and create a 3D rendering like you saw in the video, and come back to school committee during the due diligence phase after you selected us as a vendor, and we'd have a discussion about what we thought made the most sense.
Well, I'm asking because you see the biggest piece you have is blocked by the middle school.
Where's this? Which piece are you pointing to?
Top left hand.
Top.
Yeah, the rectangle.
All the way to the left? Here?
No.
No,
Oh,
top.
that one,
Up
yeah.
here?
No, that one,
Right here?
yes.
Oh yeah, you get southern exposure there.
Yeah,
You're okay.
the sun is, that parking lot is very sun, probably from noontime on,
Yeah.
because it's up high enough in the sky.
Yep. And keep in mind too that this is like a pre-financing design, right? So before we could pull the trigger on building this, so we look at the past 30 years of sun data for like this longitude and latitude from the closest meteorological tower. They usually have one at one of the airports, but we use an industry standard system called PV Watts. It's a website you can plug in and see exactly what the production should be based on the past 30 years. Then we use a tool called the Sun Eye, and the Sun Eye will tell us when we hold it out at that location. Our estimator will come back with a report that says, yep, this one's good to go, you know, based on where the sun's going to be in the winter versus in the summer and how high the trees are. You know, this one punched in at 72%, that'll get it done. And so then we'd come back to you guys and report that that is like a true candidate. But this is an overlay right now without having done all that work with the Sun Eye. But having done, you know, over 1,000 of these, we are pretty good from like eye in the sky in terms of conceptually figuring out where it could go.
I think what we should clarify here is that in the subcommittee, when Brightergy presented to the Central Office Subcommittee, we did have some discussion about possible obstructions in the lower left there opposite the maintenance bays and so forth, and that there might be areas that this really couldn't sterilize, so they would, we probably, you know, the final detailed design wouldn't really consider that area. So directionally, I think we're probably looking at a slightly smaller system, right, Greg? That I know you guys haven't addressed yet, but...
Greg, have you spent any time with the parking lot that's out here, which is due south?
Right.
And certainly could lend itself to facilitating, you know, an added piece to that footprint.
I definitely agree. And we could absolutely do that and work that into the design too. I think from our standpoint, we want to make sure that we get into the interconnection queue before we spend too much time engineering, just because you know, a lot of times people don't know that behind the grid, I didn't know until we started doing a lot of interconnection applications up here, that even though you can fit it on site, doesn't always mean that the grid will let us build it on site. So we need to file a very formal stack of paperwork to the utility, and then they come back to us and say, there is X amount of, you know, solar that can still go on this line. And you know, a lot of times it's a heartbreaker for us. We get a very big client that wants a very big project and is gung-ho, and then we apply and we have to take the system down 75%, you know, or 50% of what we originally proposed.
Now, would you do the discussion with the grid to see what's in the queue and whether or not this is even a feasible possibility for our district?
We could. Yeah, well, I would say this, Maureen. So what Craig and I want to accomplish tonight was to build some visibility and awareness to other folks within the community that we haven't met with prior, right? And today, you know, what we've proposed at a high level is, you know, we call it a megawatt, right? And the financials are driven around that. The interconnection application is that process that we have to file with National Grid. When we do that, a customer, whether it be a school system or a commercial industrial customer, has signed a letter of intent with us.
Okay.
Which would generally be after you go through RFQ, out through 25A, and then you vet other partners like Brightergy, and then you say, you know what, we like you guys, you meet the litmus test internally with the committee and the community, let's move forward with a letter of intent. At that point is when we fire the interconnect application with National Grid, and then we know that on the line, as we call it, right, we could actually do 2 megawatts because it has that capacity. They may come back and say, you know what, you can only do 500 kilowatts, but if you pay more money, Brightergy, we'll help you get to a megawatt, and then that would be, again, part of the financial discussion around that. So, you know, the intent tonight was to provide a model and some visibility and awareness around, we think we've got, you know, a really good opportunity to help the school system impact their electricity rate over a long time. At the same point, we've got a little ways to go here, right? And once we get there, then, you know, if you say, hey, this makes business sense, we're going to go out to RFQ, well, then you're going to really get down to the brass tacks. And Charlie and Lee have already done that with us, but we're willing. I mean, I do these meetings 3 times a week, so this is part of it. There's another question.
Bill, if we're already in a net metering credit agreement that includes our middle high school complex in this building, and you're saying there may not be a megawatt that we can do here, do you know how easy it would be to reallocate our net metering credits to our other buildings that are in our other 5 towns to free up some capacity here?
Yep.
Is that doable?
Yeah, so there's a form called the Schedule C, and they'll actually let you change your credit allocation a couple times a year. So even after you select a vendor, and from the time we apply for interconnection on something like this, we're still like 120 days out from when we'd actually build and commission the project at a minimum. And so really, you know, you've got time from the time you select a vendor and decide the project size to reallocate those credits. And they don't have to be to just your facilities either. So, goodness, where was I last week? Well, there is a, I can think of the name, it's up in northern Mass. I travel a bunch for work.
Short answer is yes.
There's a town that's sending several, they have 2 solar farm net metering credit agreements, but also signed into an agreement and wanted to look at their landfill. And so they're actually sending it around to Tewksbury and Dracut and sending their net metering credits to other towns because, you know, people now understand that if you can have net metering credits, it's a good thing, right? The same as if you can have solar on site. Like it's cheaper electricity that you can lock in for a long time. So, sure.
Dr. Allen and Steve.
Yeah. You just raised a very interesting second point. Is there any reason we couldn't do these at some of the elementary? You know, Ruggles Lane has a parking lot twice the size of what we use. I don't think the other ones do. But what about that too?
So Dr. Allen, we did talk with Charlie and Lee about that in terms of potential expansion of the project, and from where they sat, you know, I don't want to speak for them directly, but there was a conceptual agreement, but then I know also you've got other towns that are involved in that decision as it relates to the other school system expansion. But we could, if you wanted to, again, expand it. Is it one school that is owned and operated?
They're all owned and operated by the individual towns.
Okay, all right. So we would need agreement by potentially other parties, but again, that doesn't stop us from engaging and saying, yes, we can build larger carports, we can use the rooftop, for example, on other particular facilities, and grow the system size. Again, a contingency with National Grid.
Well, the buildings are all about the same age.
Yeah.
Well, we have new roofs here and there, though.
Yeah, so again, whether it,
Okay.
just know that from a financial perspective, it's a little cheaper to do it on a roof if the roof has a new life, right? And generally speaking,
We get 2 of them.
if we would marry solar with the life of the roof as close as possible, around 20 years, 20 to 25 years. So if you're under 5 years, then you generally have a good opportunity potentially to marry solar on the roof. And the economics of putting it on a roof are more attractive than the economics of carport. They're both attractive either way, but it's richer in terms of impacting electricity rate if you were to do it on a rooftop in an elementary school versus build a carport. And that's just general business concept, right? Put it on a roof,
So your
it's
answer
just
is
a
yes.
ballasting, yeah.
I got that.
Yeah.
Is there a recommendation from the subcommittee?
No, the subcommittee wanted to bring Brightergy in here so that the whole committee could hear their approach, because, you know, this is unique to our today this is unique to us because our agreement and other potential offerors are all off-site. They're all putting them on pastures like you've seen or other places. Nothing on our property or any of the town's properties. This is a unique situation. So we figured, the subcommittee figured, let's bring it to the full committee for informational purposes. You know,
That's
so
great.
I mean, so after this, if the full committee said, you know, we don't want this stuff, we don't want any metal or anything, that's fine. So we would know that. We wouldn't waste their time, and we would march our merry way going somewhere else. If we said, gee, that seems like a good idea, whether we wanted to do it on the high school, middle high school parking lot, or we wanted to explore maybe the rooftop, we could do that. But I kind of want the full committee, you know, we wanted the full committee armed with some knowledge as to here's what the approach could be, what some of the options are, and then let's go on from there.
Well, found money, if it isn't ugly,
Right,
seems to make some sense.
good for you here.
I got Steve and Nick.
Why would we want to do this over another net metering?
So having power on site, so the advantages of a net metering credit agreement are that you don't have to go to bid. That's it. That's the only advantage it has over doing on-site solar. On-site generation in every other way is going to be more advantageous to your bottom line. And the reason being is because in New England, the way that you're billed for power, some of it is on the kilowatt hour, but others are on like the actual kilowatts, like the amount of demand your facility has at any point in time, like how much is on. And so there's one peak hour that occurs in New England in the summer during July or August, and depending on what you're contributing to New England's peak at that time, you get dinged based on what you had on, whether it's your cooling, whatever, in your facility at one point in time. Solar on these sites, or if you have a generator on the site, anything that can make you look like a smaller energy user during these peak pricing times is going to be more advantageous to your bottom line. So solar is going to serve as, in New England, as like a peak clipper, if you will. So it'll actually reduce what's called your capacity charge on the bill, and but since it's hardwired into your meter, unlike the net metering credit agreement, it's making you look like a smaller energy user during some of those peak pricing times.
Wouldn't that be for a school district that has shuts down, obviously, July and August are two peak generation times, but
Right.
it's also a slow time for us.
Yep.
The benefit there isn't as great, it could be.
It's definitely not as great as it could be, but so that would be the one major charge. Like for every megawatt the schools are using, and in full session you might use 600, like 60% of a megawatt. But for every megawatt you're using, it's about 50 grand that's built into your bill over the course of the year. So even 60% of that's a pretty good size. So you guys might be down at 20% of it in the summer, but you're billed monthly too on a demand charge that doesn't go and correlate to like the kilowatt hours you use. It corresponds to your peak usage for that month, like your peak power demand at any point that month. And so having solar on site is like protecting you against your peak. That way we don't have to have a bell in here, like a siren that goes off every time we're getting close to what might cost you the next, more money and move you into the next ratchet.
The net metering agreement we have is right now about 50% of what energy we consume, is that true?
No, it's
30.
39.
So would this complete our capacity at this point?
Well, I don't know, because we never really spoke, I mean, we spoke some possible capacity, but once again, we can kind of choose.
We don't know the capacity, by the way, either. We don't know what can fit. Even if we file an interconnect app with Grid, if they come back and tell us we can do 2 megawatts, we can bring it back to you guys and say, we have 2 megawatts that we could do. Now, like, what do we want to do? You know what I mean? What should we actually submit for? And a lot of that's going to be based on location, but also, what makes the most sense in the portfolio with the.
Is there any benefit to doing some more than we use for us, for you?
Well, yeah, only if you get into a situation, if you've got a net metering agreement with a net metering credit purchase agreement with a neighboring town, and you've got a good relationship with them, and they get it, and you've sold them on it, and they want to take your net metering credits. But typically, they're probably going to want to do a deal themselves or something like that.
I got Ed, and Charles, and then David.
Okay, could you expand on what role National Grid's playing in all this? Because I've come across a couple articles saying they're saying enough is enough.
Yep. It's,
And can they do that? At what point in the process can they do it? I mean, we signed on to a net metering
yep.
deal, and all of a sudden it's kind of dragging along before we see any money.
Yep.
We get-
You're spot on. You've been reading the paper. Bill's actually got 530 pages on that.
Yeah,
he's
so,
written more than I have.
the question is, and it would apply particularly to National Grid, but the other investor-owned utilities in the Commonwealth, what's the incentive of National Grid to allow solar in their service territory? And the state of Massachusetts actually mandates a percentage of their territory has to be solar. And the program that's in place is called SREC 2, which is Solar Renewable Energy Credit 2. And more recently, they're starting to hit capacity in certain areas. So Eversource still has some availability. National Grid is coming up on peak. And over the past 8 years, each time solar's been adopted and it's been, more of it has been deployed in the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth and the legislature and the committees have increased the capacity. So generally speaking, and I know I want to be careful here, right? Because we have to ask permission to be part of the ecosystem with National Grid or Eversource or even some of the other municipal territories. But the state mandates that there are X number of megawatts, right, that have to be deployed in solar. And then based on the service territory, particularly with National Grid, where you folks are, there are a certain number of megawatts that are allocated, they have to abide by. So it's a little bit of a chess game as it relates to, and we're not the only solar developer in the state of Massachusetts, but all the developers encounter the same sort of, we want to play nice in the sandbox, but we're also impacting their ratepayers and things of that nature. Does that answer your question?
Somewhat. So, is having so much solar affecting National Grid's bottom line enough so that they're going to just turn around and jack up the rates on the other end, you know, on whatever electricity we're buying?
I'm not a financial analyst on the 10K of the quarterly results of National Grid. I don't think it's that material of an impact. I don't want to minimize that either, right? I don't think it's an impact where today, based on what the limits are in solar, what the mandate is from Massachusetts, that it's having a material impact as it relates to their rate and their profitability to then say, well, I'm going to go and recapture that by a higher rate in other places. I think that the thing that Craig said that is affecting rate the most in the Northeast is actually the limited supply of natural gas. Because there's not enough pipeline that's coming into the state of Massachusetts, which typically some of the plants are fired by coal, the electricity producing plants are fired by coal, or they're fired by natural gas, and then the increase in residential adoption of natural gas has created a constraint, and hence that's affecting the electricity rate. And we don't necessarily see relief on that in the near term. And so I would say there's a bigger bailiwick with that side of it versus putting more solar into their service territory in Massachusetts.
Okay, one final question. Sure. If we went with you and you gave us a date when we start getting power, would we get that date after you absolutely sure National Grid's going okay you and everything else, and you can, you know, it'll be an absolute
You
date?
bet your bottom dollar. I was down. I mean, that's what I do every day of the week. So
Yeah, it's approximately from interconnection or contract signed, right, which is we have pen to paper, T's and C's have been defined, and now Brightergy owns development and construction of that. It's about a 120 to 180 day cycle to get the systems up and commissioned and approved, and you're generating your electricity here. On the short end, it's probably about 120 days. That may slide a little, but that's probably a good gauge from contract signed to construction to actual self-generation on site. And again, we're a for-profit company, so we're driven by, you know, what we want to make that system own and operate because we've got a financial interest in it.
Charles?
Just to address Ned's question about the economics, part of it, Ned, is the fact you pay a half a cent per kilowatt hour surcharge on your bill every month, for every kilowatt hour you use. Now, there may be something on commercial bills as well, and there are others, they have these SREC auctions whereby, millions, probably billions of dollars are spent on buying and selling these rights to develop solar energy on a commercial scale. But also the other thing, and I don't know, sorry, I was a bit late getting here, I don't know whether Bill or Craig predicated their presentation on the capacity of the system on which that matrix of economics that you saw, the annual savings, but that was a 1 megawatt system, right, for the middle high school, which equates to roughly about 1.4 million kilowatt hours a year. So that's 1.4, it's about 49% of the 2.9 million that we use. Now, whether we would go with a system that big or not, as I said, there were other possibly physical constraints that may cause that to diminish. Just wanted to put folks in the picture.
Our big ask here tonight is that the school committee vote to actually go out to request for qualifications, via 25A, and in doing that, that will allow you guys the chance to receive vendor proposals and ultimately select the bidder, so that in conversations like these, we can then take the next steps to spend the resources in evaluating this opportunity for the school district. So, per 25A, we have the template documents from the Department of Energy Resources that we're happy to pass along to procurement as well in Word doc form, so you guys can, edit for the school district and release and streamline the process. But per 25A, even if you go out to bid, you can still decide to kick the can down the road. So
you can take no action. You can go out to bid and get requests for qualifications, and then, again, as a committee, say, you know what, we want to do solar. We want to go in a net metering agreement. You have that out clause under that provision. So
yeah. So
Peter had a question.
I know at the residential level there are credits that are applied by the state of Massachusetts for implementing a solar system. Is that something that would be beneficial to us? So would we be getting credits?
So the way that it works, that price that you see there, that price that we've worked out of 9 cents in this preliminary pricing model, if we were to look at a similar system up in like Maine or New Hampshire where they don't have the same state programs, that rate would be up in like the low 20s. So that price and getting 36% below your rate, that's reflected everything worked in coming out to that rate for the energy. So.
Okay. And then the other question that I have is regarding insurance. So based on your experience implementing a system that you're proposing for the carports and the parking lot, does that affect the insurance, the school insurance at any rate,
Every insurance provider has their own stipulations and different comfort level with solar, but at the end of the day, that is that's part of the vetting process with who you choose as your insurance provider
because
too.
we want to take that into consideration.
Sure.
With a net effect.
Yep. To put you guys at ease a little bit, one of the big pioneers on the East Coast in doing this was the Washington Redskins, and they actually did about 2.5 megawatts of parking canopy over their VIP parking section at FedEx Field. But when you think about, the Redskins don't win a lot, right? They've got a whole bunch of They're not Massachusetts, so they've got
the name anymore.
Yeah, they've got a whole bunch of rowdy fans down there that they have to. They've got to deal with the insurance liability of that too, and they've had nothing happen to them so far.
Just know that as the system operator, we only operate and maintain, and the transfer of the electricity credit is back to you. So we, Ridergy, as a special purpose entity, has to have insurance on the actual carport, right? What I think is unanswered, which should be answered as part of the due diligence, is does that affect the rate of the district because of the structure now being on it, right?
That was my question.
Yes. So it's our structure that we own and operate, so we have insurance to cover the structure. What remains to be seen is does that have an impact on your rate in the district because of new structure there, right? And And that again we could probably answer that through your RFQ process and get the folks involved from the business office on that.
Ned and then Steve.
Okay, when we get the 25As back and I'm dazed and confused reading them, what's
Yeah.
the most important feature that we should look for?
Right, you
I
got it.
would, all right, well, I would say 3 years of audited financials from a company. You're entering into a 20-year agreement, so you don't want two guys in a pickup truck taking a swing at this just because they put in super lowball bid. I think in terms of the school district and kind of educating a future workforce in renewable energy and the whole industry in general, I think the curriculum piece is huge. So we make a pretty big deal about that and put our best foot forward with our Common Core Standards curriculum. And then, you know, it comes down to an economic decision around the part we have highlighted here of the all-in price per kilowatt hour. Generally, I mean, you probably want to put out for about a megawatt, right? That'll give a pretty good litmus test of a megawatt of parking canopy. What can you do for price? Create that apples-to-apples comparison. And
And I'll add one last thing. How many schools have we done? We've done 400 school districts.
How many?
400.
400.
Versus, and again, we don't do residential, right? So the audited financials is pretty important, and it's not just audited financials. It's actually you want them to show 3 years of profitable financials. Because it's a 20-year agreement, a lot of developers may come in with what we'll call a low bid, but then they can't get the deal financed, right? So to understand the financing vehicle behind it, you know, there's the SREC component, right, which is a renewable energy credit. That has a monetary value that we structure as part of our finance. So there's a little more sophistication then behind the wall as it relates to how the deal is financed, right?
Yeah.
If you're working with an organization that doesn't have the credit facilities and the banking and the profitable balance sheet, then they won't get the deal financed, and that's a challenge, right? Because now you've selected someone, you go down due diligence, you put a lot of cycles into it, and the deal's not good because they can't finance it, right? So that's a strong point. Again, school systems is our sweet spot. We have a fair amount of commercial industrial customers around the country. And then Craig said a separator for us is the curriculum. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on it tonight, but the core curriculum that we help integrate as it relates to science and the jobs and the science of solar and things of that nature, it's a program that no other commercial developer in the solar business has today, right? And that's something that is part of the program for us. So those I would say are the 3 or 4 top differentiators for us. The other things are just going to be general, you know, construction capabilities, project management, those sorts of things. And you know, as with any construction, there's a couple of headaches that go along with that, right?
So speaking of construction, you subcontract to construction, right?
A combination of both. So
Okay.
we have Brightergy W-2 employees, right? We also partner with a firm called Black & Veatch, and Black & Veatch, for those who don't know, is a global engineering and construction firm, right? So their folks would help. And then IBEW 7 is who we contract with, and we are obligated, again, by state as it relates to the rates that we have to pay with contract labor. And then we have a project manager.
Those should be listed on the 25A application sometime.
Correct, yeah. So you would want to ask, you know, as it relates to construction and labor, what's your delivery model, right? Which is it W-2? Is it contract labor? Is there a partnership? And are you willing to pay prevailing wage, which is a mandate in the state of Massachusetts, which we have to.
And that's included in the template as well that we'll pass along to whoever would champion procurement here.
Sharp smile about that.
Steve and then over here. Good?
When it's built, how invasive is the construction project? How much would you tear up the parking, the tarmac, and when you put it all back together? Obviously, there'll be some trenching to get to the grade.
Yep. Yeah, if you, there's some pictures of them in construction online right now. But I mean, if you see, we have to make it look good at the end of it. So restoring any of the tar around the concrete pillars in the base of it, and ultimately making sure we get a really good working product at the end of it.
So from a construction, I mean, if you think about from a piling perspective, we're going to use piling and boring drill, right, to get the piling in versus having to do a major, that's an impact to the parking lot, right? So it's a precise way that they, and I'm not an engineer, so I don't want to get over my head here, but it's a piling and a boring that they use to create the hole by which then the pilings are then constructed and then open above that. So ideally for us, particularly in the school system, the best time to do it is over the summer, right? That said, though, we have other projects where, we would work with the district based on piecemeal, where if you start in the fall, you may have to close off certain parts of the parking lot that won't be accessible. But again, each of those sections, once we get going and we get rolling beyond paperwork and everything else like that, rooftop is under 30 days. A physical structure of good scale and scope is probably about 45 to 60. So, and we would do that in pieces and say, okay, this area we're going to tackle next, and you folks would have to make a decision and get notice that you can't use that. So, again, we don't want to think about it. We don't want to incur any more cost as it relates to construction and damage to parking structures and things like that, because that throws off the financials.
So my overall concern with this is, as opposed to the net metering, that we end up incurring additional costs throughout the lifetime of having these canopies in the parking lot that offset any savings we'd have just going with a net metering agreement. The beautiful thing for us with net metering is to sign the paper and get the benefits of the discount. Here, obviously, there's physical concerns we have to work with. Whether it's, obviously, the insurance may go up, we don't know. Snow plowing, I would assume the plowing contractor is going to want to charge quite a bit more to go around all these pilings. It's going to be a much more difficult area to plow. Obviously, that's not your concern. But that falls back on us and the additional cost there from other savings we see. So while I'm not opposed to this at all, I'd like to see how much additional cost we expect over the lifetime. That would be on the subcommittee.
No problem. Actually, that subject came up at the meeting we had, about a month ago with and Bill and Craig said they would provide some references to us in Kansas, Missouri, for some schools.
In both, yes.
So we could talk about operational issues, operational maintenance issues associated. That's one area that we discussed. And then they also discussed the possible visit to REI in Framingham.
I guess we'll get you the list of closest 10 parking.
Yeah, so we can see an installation. Talk to them about the snow removal.
Yep.
Yeah.
To go back to what you just said, do you send any quality surveys out from the quality perspective if we wanted to take a look at those before we decided the beginning? Is that something that would be available?
I don't understand the question yet.
So,
Customer satisfaction?
yeah, customer satisfaction surveys, do you send any?
Yeah, oh no, yeah,
out?
okay,
Do you
yeah,
have
no.
results from that?
Yes, we have, we tied it together with the RFQ there, so yes, we have a client services business unit that tracks our customer satisfaction and engages them in terms of, their level of satisfaction with us as a partner and what it was like for the process. Now that's a continuous effort. The other thing I think that you're asking for is, can you talk to 5 to 7 school districts that we've done before you go out to RFQ? I've never been asked that question, so I'm going to have to take that one under advisement. I mean, generally speaking, we respect the confidentiality of our customers, and that as a function of the RFQ process. I haven't been asked the question, so I guess I can't answer it. But
We generally like to see the school districts commit to going out to RFQ, since it's something that doesn't specify an exact project. Like, we don't need to focus on the parking canopies, or we don't need to pigeonhole ourselves into the roof. We can go out for a general request for qualifications from vendors for solar. So we generally like to see a level of commitment that the school accepts the benefits of it on a financial level and on an educational level from a high-level point of view, commit to going out to RFQ, and at that point, you're welcome to dig into all of our references as well as all of our competitors' references too. So I think that would probably be our standpoint there.
Any other questions? Wouldn't that be part of the 25, on the RFQ anyway, the RFP, would be a reference check?
Yeah.
Be able to- So not, we have the mandated criteria and then a comparative criteria.
You're going to get name, rank, and serial number of references, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we're obligated to it that way.
That's right.
So, yeah, that's part of the due diligence without a doubt.
Yeah. And then just, I know you mentioned early, I heard 1,000 structures have been around, you said?
We've done over 1,300 projects in the past 3 years.
1,300, of that 1,300, you're saying about 400 are with school districts?
Correct, yeah.
Throughout the country?
Yep.
And not holding a feet to the fire on this,
No.
curiously on the northeast leading Connecticut up. How many would you say in that area, including New York?
This is our first full year of operation in Massachusetts right now.
Okay.
In terms of parking canopies, we do hold right now the second largest parking canopy job in the state, down
Okay.
for Hawthorne Medical in Dartmouth. And talk about construction, they operate round the clock as a cancer treatment facility down there. So, it's certainly that piece. In terms of schools, we're in due diligence with about, 25 to 30 schools that are further down the path right now.
Okay.
And we've been to, sponsored dinners down at Hyannis and the superintendent's conference, and been very involved in the network. So now we're very much, we have.
Yeah, I would say the closest, as it relates to the school system, the closest as it relates to having a good discussion is actually with Grafton. So they went out, the bid closed yesterday. We led a very similar campaign with them and very similar meeting structure over a period of about 4 to 5 months. There is mixed use in it, meaning that there's rooftop as well as carport. They have a net metering agreement, correct, Craig? 2 of them, right?
2 net metering.
So there's a lot of similarity to the dynamics at Grafton than there are going on here between net metering and the option. And the Director of Finance, Daniel Gale, led the campaign along with their Director of Facilities. And we can talk to Daniel, and the team can talk to them and say, help us understand, and this is separate of Brighterview, right? Help us understand the concept, why you guys made the decision to go to RFQ, what the net metering impact was, why would you want to do that with all the snow we had and things like that. And then again, we're here to answer those questions, but Grafton would be the closest to say that has very similar dynamics to your district.
Great, I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
Dan, I know Dan personally.
Yeah.
He came on before he went to Grafton, he was worked for the Worcester Public Schools.
Okay, right,
I know
so,
Dan.
right. And, well, I grew up in Milford, so.
Those are, Mike, any questions from anybody in the audience? Any further questions?
Do you guys actively clear the snow off the panels?
No. No, it melts.
As I say, it melts,
It's
right?
not part of the contract.
One quick question I had too, it generates, which I like, I know it's a picture, I understand it, but it generated the lighting, so
Yes,
the lighting will be generated there.
yes.
I think you already answered the question. There's no plug-in, so you're not able to, not just charge your car, but are there any?
There's no power, no,
There's
no power
okay.
to it.
No power.
There's lighting that can accomplish
generated.
safety or aesthetics,
Yeah.
a combination of both. And
Switch on and off? Or is it always on?
You can
I don't know.
switch it on or off the same as you have control over
Yeah.
at the breaker level, or you can implement other controls.
And in certain deployments, there has been a couple of car charging stations in other parts of the country, right? So you can plug in an electric car, but that might be 2 or 3 spots out of the
Yeah.
hundreds that are available right now.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
So, I would ultimately like to, ask the school committee to go out to vote. If you guys would be willing to, put it up to a vote tonight, on whether to move forward with the request for qualification process, because, it'll be an advantage to the school to at least vet this out and see if we can, you guys can get into the interconnection queue earlier to see if this is a real opportunity for the district.
We'll probably end up, yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it makes great sense, but I'd like a recommendation from the subcommittee.
Right. So I was thinking maybe thank you for the presentation, and then do our business as I get down to that committee level. We'll be discussing that further with the committee. So, and then we'll get back to you on going through superintendent as well as sounds okay?
Yep.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. All has an each? Has an each? Yeah, it's all works out, yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, no, all, absolutely. Just a bit weird. Probably except the initial plan with Cheryl and Maureen. All right. Assume there was some gaps. Thanks. Thank you very much. Charles, can you grab the light? Oh, no. Okay. Charles, would you pick up my it was very good. I know it's get all the information out there, and then we'll talk further. Again, if there's no objection, I would like to, if it's okay with the committee, I'd like to go to the field trips, and then we'll go to the visits at the end. I know there's also students that may want to present, so I think I'd like to get that for the students. I think lots of other
I was going to say there are a number of students out there, and there's a student there, and still think they get homework, so maybe we can get
Exactly.
They get dispensation tonight, don't they?
I don't know, not from
So I
the
thought I'd turn it over to the superintendent first.
Basically, the committee had requested in the past that they never get to hear what happened on the trips that they've approved. And so this evening, we do have the individuals who participated in the Netherlands exchange trip program. We also have information about the 8th grade DC trip. And I have an out-of-state field trip to ask you to approve later on. So the students are here and ready to, okay, ready, I'm moving again. And, I think we're ready to hear from the Netherlands.
Yeah, we have Anna Barry, Amy Christian, Tim Joyce, and Nicole Patterson here. They were some of the students who both hosted the Dutch students when they came in September. We hosted 24 of them. And then they also, they were some of the 16 students who traveled with us to the Netherlands over April vacation. And so they want to share some of that. Nicole has a booklet that was given to her, and she'll pass that around. And Kaylee has put together a little film of our trip to the Netherlands, and they'd be willing and happy to answer any questions about that, and I think they're the best spokespeople. And I'd also, as part of this, like to ask that we be allowed to do the same exchange program next year, and then after that it would be every other year. But we want to stagger some stuff because the French trip was also very successful, and that will be going every other year. So this way there's some staggering and we're not doing the same things over and over again. So Kaylee is going to show you the film that she put together. If you guys want to say something while that's all coming on, that would be great.
It's really fun.
Oh, thanks, Nicole. Why don't you step out so people in the audience can see you too?
Okay,
Go
on
ahead.
in.
Nicole Patterson, everyone. Tim Joyce and Anna Barry. Yeah, they can also, everyone can see you now.
Now you ready?
Yeah. I don't know how the volume's going to be right now, so I'll just adjust that.
What were the dates?
This was April vacation. This was April vacation, so this was the 18th to the 25th. And this is, I guess, her trip to the airport on the 18th.
Yes.
Those people?
I was actually holding it and at this point, but actually during the trip, one of the Dutch
Yeah.
kids actually gave us a pole to use. So it was pretty cool.
Yes, we did go to Schiphol Airport. With her Schiphol.
Or Schiphol, whatever.
Schiphol, yeah. Just play it, it's okay. You can hum along.
So this,
It's a lot more fun.
Okay, this is in Boston itself. You might recognize some of these characters.
Charlie, you didn't go on this one? Charlie,
What?
you didn't go on this one?
So now we're next, or now we're.
This is in the Netherlands.
Never did that. It was in the Netherlands. Where's the little kid with his finger?
He was busy. And
Busy?
yeah, this was a Dutch for Dummies class that we took. I was one of the biggest dummies.
We had to bike everywhere.
Committe for stump.
Yeah, the students had to bike just about everywhere they went. There's actually more bikes than people in the Netherlands.
And then we actually got to go to a field hockey practice with a few of our hosts, so this was at field hockey practice. So we had to bike there. Yes, we biked there.
And this is a mix of the Dutch students with the American students. This is, we went by bike and train pretty much everywhere.
Did you enjoy the Dutch breakfasts? Kind of like lunch here, isn't it?
Yeah. That was in Amsterdam.
Yes, this is it.
This was about as touristy as you can get.
Yeah, pretty much.
Did you have a rice toffel for dinner? No?
This is at the Reichstag Museum.
We were biking behind me.
We went to Valibi, which is an amusement park like Six Flags. We were hosted there.
How many students went?
We had 16 students.
That's a Dutch boy waving.
Yeah, that wasn't Alkmaar, right?
That was Akbar, yeah. That's it for her video. Brief, quick and to the point. You know, why don't you talk about some of the things that you saw in Amsterdam a little bit? You can pass that out, Jen.
This is like a little book. She made like diary entries of when she came and took pictures and stuff, and she made it in a book, and she gave it to me when I left. So
We went.
we went to the Van Gogh Museum
Yeah.
and Anne Frank House.
When we first got there, we went on a canal tour.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Yeah, we went through all the canals, and then we walked to where that.
Where the Reichstag
Yeah,
is.
and then we went to the Van Gogh Museum, and then walked to the Anne Frank House, and went through the Anne Frank House.
They actually arranged for us to get sort of a private educational discussion in the Anne Frank House, so they actually knew what they were getting into as they were going through it, which was very, very nice. The Dutch hosts pretty much took care of all of our needs, from riding on the train to going through the museums and even going to the amusement park. And then, you know, the last day, they learned a lot about one of the cities that had never been conquered by the Spanish, one of the few ones in Europe that hadn't been. And, you know, they got to see a lot of cheese that day. They have a cheese show every Friday, and there's maybe thousands of big things of cheese that they're performing with, and showing basically how cheese is delivered, and it's kind of entertaining. Then there is actually a cheese museum. I don't think we went to that. It was right next to the beer museum, and we made sure that nobody went into that. But it was a nice day. And what do you think was the best part of the whole exchange?
The relationship, like, we kind of like formed with these people, especially because like when they came over, we got along really well. And it was like really sad to say goodbye, like people were crying, but we got to see them again when we went over and kind of have like a different experience. And like a lot of like our downtime, like we were all like, oh, let's all just hang out and stuff. And it was really fun.
And I felt this way, I didn't even talk to you guys about this, but not only did I feel like I made a close relationship with my host, but I also felt as if I made a close relationship with Anna's host, Nicole's host, and other people's hosts as well, because we all spent so much time together as a group.
Did you visit a school?
Yeah, we actually spent a few days at the Thiche School in Castricum. That's where we were hosted from. These students in groups of 4 made presentations about America to the Dutch students, multimedia presentations, and they were very good. And they actually want those so they can show their students how to do them when they come back here. And then you got to go to maybe 1 or 2 classes, but there were a lot of presentations. They had a lot of history about their town. They had a lot of history about Dutch politics and comparative to American politics. We did have the Dutch for Dummies, and part of that was placing names with different foods and different aspects, like Santa Claus and King's Day and such. And they really went all out to make the students feel like they're a part of everything. And they'd be coming in with hundreds of other Dutch students every day to the school, and then parking their bike among the literally thousands of bikes that were in the parking lot. There are very few cars there, but just bikes. And then when people would leave, it would be a stream of bicycles going through there. And it was really weird for us to see it. And everywhere you go, it's all bicycles. The major parking garage in Amsterdam is bicycles. And so it's very efficient that way, and the trains are very efficient, I thought. How'd you like the food?
I
love the food.
Yeah.
I like the food.
Some of it was
Some of it was really good. Some of it.
too much black licorice for me.
Yeah.
A lot of their candies are all just like gummies, and they're like a lot of black licorice and all that. Pretty much all their meat tastes like sausage.
Everything.
Sausage.
But I like sausage.
Coated with bread. That's what
There's a lot of bread.
Where were you
Bread for
in
a long
Holland?
time when I
You're in
got
Castricum.
Where's that?
That's about 20 miles outside of Amsterdam along the coast.
Oh, over toward
A little
Harlem?
bit north and
Over toward Harlem, that way?
Yeah. And actually, within Castricum, you have old dunes and then new dunes. And then the old dunes, they actually send a lot of their water supply for the Netherlands to there, and it gets filtered down through the sand, and then they recover that water after it's been filtered and use it as the drinking water for not just that community, but a lot of the communities around. And one of the parents was actually one of the engineers that helped bring the water. So part of our bike trip on that day was to ride our bikes against the wind and see where the water comes out and then back into the dunes, because it comes from one of the rivers that's a little bit polluted, and it goes in, and it all gets filtered by the sand. And it also keeps the groundwater from totally being gone, and then the seawater going in and taking its place. So it keeps that water clean. So it's a really fascinating process, I thought. And Castricum itself was, if you know, they have a lot of bunkers there. That some were built by the Nazis, but a lot of them were built by the Dutch, and they actually stored a lot of the artwork from the Reich Museum and saved that. And there's actually a lot of those bunkers still storing films that go all the way back to the 20s and the 30s. And they're trying to figure out how to keep those safe. And so meanwhile, a lot of those bunkers are inaccessible. And so that was kind of neat as part of the bike ride too. I think one of the cool things about when you're in Europe, World War II isn't that really current to us, but to Europe, because it was fought there and because there's so much significance there, that's a very present part of who they are. And I think that was very educational for our students.
Did any of you read the Anne Frank diary?
But going to the museum made me want to, because like walking through, like there were like quotes from it all on the walls.
Very stark, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is the house the original or is it rebuilt?
Oh, it's the original. And they have the only furnishings in there are the actual furnishings. Anything that was destroyed, they have to replace. And so you actually see pictures that they pasted onto the wall to sort of give themselves entertainment. And any things that they wrote, like when people were growing, marks for that, they have those, and those are preserved under plexiglass. But Otto Frank was the only survivor from that family, and he made sure before he died that nothing would go in there except what was had actually been in there.
Ed?
Did you get an impression that the Dutch educational system's about at our level or ahead of us, or?
It's kind of hard to tell because like they have like 3 different school levels of like kind of like the lower, like the middle, and the higher and stuff, where you need to like perform at certain levels. And we went to like some of the schools that were like at the middle level, and I'd say they're probably on par with us.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to tell because we've been like
Yeah.
It's so different.
Yeah.
But you also get some kind of feel.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that happens with the Dutch system is a lot of the students who they would consider lower are sort of channeled into other schools. So their fate's pretty much decided for them before they get to high school.
And the trades.
Yeah, in the trades. Whereas, here you can sort of you can decide to rise to the occasion, and you have a chance to go anywhere you want. A lot of those students who are in the lower schools, they'll never go to college, and they don't have a chance to. So sometimes it's good to know what's going to happen to you the rest of your life, but probably not good when you're 14.
Is that tracking?
Yeah, it's like the UK system, and as Ray said, much of Europe is like very selective for the college level.
Just 2 questions. The portion size, I know when we had the French the trip there, how's the portion size of food?
Small.
Yeah, that's small.
And we biked everywhere too, so I just like spent a lot of energy. I'm like, I need more right now.
Like when we would go to school in the morning, the mom would make me a sandwich, and she would take one piece of bread, fold it in half, and I'd be like, oh, don't you just like put like all the peanut butter on one side and all the Nutella on the other, and then you put it together? And she's like, isn't a lot of food? And I was like, no, this is an American sandwich. And she was like, she thought it was the most like baffling thing. She was like, really, you eat that much at the same time? Like you don't save it, split it up.
And if you did get large portions for them, it was something that wasn't exactly filling. Like the first night we were there, I had a pretty much like a chicken broth based soup with a bunch of vegetables in it. And I had a full bowl, but there was no meats, no like proteins in there. It was all just vegetables. And it was okay. This is how the week's gonna go.
Even the McDonald's portions were like smaller. Like
Yeah.
I ordered like a medium fry, and it was like the extra small fry.
And then I asked this question to the other group, and I'll ask it for, I know we feel the same, but do you recommend this opportunity to continue for other Quabbin students?
Absolutely.
100%. It was like such a great experience to kind of like look at the world from a different perspective and like connect with people like across the world and like, because I know my girl, she's coming to like the U.S. this summer because her family sometimes visits, and I think she's gonna like come to my house and stay with us for like a little while. Like these people that like you have a friend like halfway across the world. So.
I just thought it was nice to like see like a completely different culture. It's like different than ours, so there's something different.
Yeah, that's definitely hard for like Americans because like they can just travel between countries, but it's harder for us to like get the culture perspective, and it's definitely good.
Right, it's amazing the size that we have in the USA here, and then you're right, how Europe is, and then the borders, the countries.
Yeah, we were saying how they were talking to us about how they drive 2 hours and they're in a different country. We drive 2 hours and we're still in Massachusetts. So that was just
Good. Anybody else? So I'm going to thank you very much for coming and telling us the trip. And you also are asking,
Can we do it? Can we do it again?
can we do it again?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, any further discussion? Seeing, hearing none, except I know that Dr. Allen's provisos of all the safety and all the pieces in place.
All
in
the
favor?
policies.
Opposed? Abstentions? Going again.
And so you know, the Dutch students have already planned on coming, and they'll probably be here September 18th next year. That's not us going. They were coming no matter what. Where are we going to put them? But then we can go back and get even with them. But they'll be here around September 18th of next year.
Could we have them come in and talk to us?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be great.
If that's what you would like, sure.
There you go, thank you.
How's their English?
Really
Good.
good.
Yeah.
It's actually really good. I
I
was
was
actually,
talking to some of the French students over here, and I was working through
Yeah.
the Dutch was very good.
And like everyone spoke English, like their
Yeah.
families could talk with us, like if someone came up to like us on the street, like and they realized we weren't Dutch, they could immediately switch to English.
yeah.
So they were at least bilingual, if not trilingual.
And they were usually able to tell that you guys were American.
Except for Tim.
Except for Tim.
They thought he was Dutch because he's so tall.
Yeah.
The Dutch are big people.
Just one last thing, that's an absolute excellent observation. Think about Europe and the languages that have developed at a young age. And here we are fighting to keep languages intact, and we don't offer it as early as kindergarten, first grade. Normally they probably knew Dutch, probably German, probably English, French.
Yeah,
I know my girl knew 5 languages. She told me.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys knew, but the reason why we were involved with them is because they're in bilingual classes. So as kids our age, they're actually in both Dutch and English classes. So that was.
I know that my student learned English when he was like 6. So yeah, it was very young age that did learn.
And a lot of like the TV and stuff was in English too, with like Dutch subtitles, so like they're kind of like, it's something that they're used to.
That's not the only, in Sweden, the same thing. When we were in Sweden a few years ago, they all spoke excellent English, and all their TV is English. I mean, they get Westerns, I mean, it's all American TV, but that's how these kids, they learn by the age of 6, they can speak English.
Yeah, they would have the regular Thursday lineup for here, there.
There.
Yeah.
I was surprised at something like TLC, and the little brother loved to watch Discovery Channel, like Mythbusters, and then like you would just see on the bottom like there was Dutch happening.
Thank you.
So thank you all for the opportunity that these students got and that I got. I think we'll start recruiting some students for hosting and then for also going. And I think it was good also being able to, when we brought the Dutch students anywhere here, our students got to go too. So our students got to go to Boston and other places.
I liked that way more than what seemed to be what the French exchange program was like. I think it allowed us to get closer with our students.
Yeah.
And like explain things, because like they might, like if they were like had a question about like something they saw in America, like they might not seek out one of the like American teachers they didn't know, but like we could just be like, oh, this is what we do.
Yeah.
Who were the chaperones? Who went?
Who went to Amsterdam?
Yeah.
It was myself and Sarah Reeder. She's in the mathematics department. There were 16 students, so it was manageable. And
Just recruiting.
yeah, these were the most untrustworthy kids, so you can see that I was pretty
Sounds
safe.
good. When do we go?
Good, sweet. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I know it's a busy night, but I'd like to continue on the trips.
No, I think we're going to do the student advisor report, if we could. I think he's got homework to do. No, you don't? Oh, your dad led me to believe you have homework to
Go
do.
home with Dad.
I just want to go home.
Okay, all right. Cool. Come on.
Well, it's been an interesting 2 years, and I guess this is my last official meeting as a representative of the school, as a student body committee. So I would like to start by thanking you all for letting me show up and talk about basically what's going on with the school and the student population. It's been a lot of fun. Some just basic things I want to cover, as I usually do for every month. Let's see, let's start. I'll start with today. An event that happened today was the Special Olympics hosted at Quabbin. We had a total of 23 schools participating, and a lot of classes went outside for these because it was really great to see just everyone hanging around and being happy and just running through these events managed by the students. It was all very well done and well organized. It was mostly organized by a senior, Allison St. Pierre. I believe this might have been her capstone project. I'm not certain on that, but I know she has been working really hard to organize all this. And there was a lot of participation in both senior and junior grades, and I think even a touch in the sophomore, but primarily senior and junior. So what I got to see for the one class I went out, it was all very nicely done. So there's that, and also in the sports section, spring sports I think are going well. I was hoping Stephanie might be here because she mentioned that. I don't know specifically how the track is going. I do know that some of our students have qualified for districts and states already, even on their first meets, which is an interesting concept for me as a event. I'm just mostly team sports in wrestling and soccer. So to think that you qualify for districts in your very first meet is just an interesting concept. But I believe the spring sports are going well, from what I've been hearing. Another big events that happened these 2 weeks and then one more week were the testing. These 3 weeks were very big with testing because of MCAS, which I'm not as familiar with anymore because I don't take it. But this week and last week were the AP tests. I finished my AP test on Wednesday with good confidence towards it. And I heard some tests were hard, some tests were easy, but I still think Quabbin has qualifications to earn scores that will give them college credit on them. These are really tests worth $3,000, and I just feel that we have all been well prepared for them. I personally thought for my AP statistics test that I was completely prepared in order to do exceptionally well on that. My statistics teacher just had a great way of conveying the information to us that we were required to know, and a lot of my class found it easy. I think it's really shows a lot of work.
Teacher?
What?
Who is your teacher?
Mrs. Degnan.
Thank you.
I just feel that it's a good showing of Quabbin almost when the class itself is harder than the AP test. Also, on the testing line, I know there's a lot of stress going on with some of my friends in their IB testing, which is happening this week. So that's a lot of cramming, a lot of information for these 3 weeks of testing. But I feel that all of them are more than confident in order to manage with that as well. And then 2 other very important events coming up as we near towards the end of the year, which will be the senior dinner dance tomorrow, and then the prom, which is happening next Saturday, I believe. And they're just very enjoyable events. I remember from last year that I really enjoyed it, so I'm hoping to enjoy both senior dinner dance and prom as well this year. And I think it should be a lot of fun.
You know where they'll be?
You know where they'll be? The senior.
Where they're taking place?
I'm not entirely sure about prom exactly. I'm more focusing on senior dinner dance, which as part of the council, we have elected for this year to have it as a private cruise all along the Boston Harbor. Usually sometimes we have multi-layered ships with like one school on this floor and one school on this floor, but we decided that this year we wanted to have be our private boat, which I think is a pretty cool concept, and I expect it to be a lot of fun. I believe we have about 150 students going or so, maybe 153. We're taking 3 buses, so I think that should. Well, those are the major events I want to cover. So now I just kind of like to talk about my 6 years of Quabbin experience as a whole. And Quabbin, I feel, is one of the better public schools in the state. I just feel that everything we have done has been exceptionally well organized. Well, it's been fairly well organized. I can't say exceptionally well because there are still some differences between, I feel, the elementary school and then what happened in the high school level, just from a lot of things seeing. Like participation, I know is a big issue in the high school level. So I feel that might have stemmed from an elementary school level. So I feel that maybe more in-class participation would be helpful because a lot of students don't really like talking in class as much. And I feel that, well, from my years as a student, I've tried to participate as much as I can because I feel that it's aids in the learning process because if there's something you don't understand, you should be understanding this because this is your school experience, and it has served me very well. So I feel that that's maybe something that we touched upon, but really what I want to attribute this learning experience to is the teachers. I feel that Quabbin Regional has some of the best teachers in the state. I feel that our teachers are college worthy, and I just love having them here. I've made a lot of great bonds with my teachers. Some have really helped me through my life experiences, like life and school experiences, and for that I'm really grateful to them. So I feel that they help change me for the better as a person and prepare me well for the college experience in my future.
Where are you gonna go to school?
I'm going to WPI.
I was hypothesizing that might be the case.
We have about 8 students going to WPI at least. So it's just a popular choice among us.
Good school?
Where are you going to study?
Robotics engineering. My intended major. However, in these last few weeks, I can't wait to go because I've already have my roommates planned out. I've already made a lot of good friends, and the college experience I'm really looking forward to.
Really unique when we went, well, when I went, I think everybody, at Holy Cross, I didn't know my roommates were going to, it was like a throw of the dice, oh, who's this person? And even once you were there, for you to switch a roommate the next year was like going through, you had to fill out forms, and they had blah, 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 and these kids were online, and he, boom, right away, he's talking to people, a person in New Jersey and Cambridge. It's just an amazing change from at least the way I think we used to do it.
Anybody else? We have had a lot of good connections to people, and at Quabbin as well, I've had a lot of strong connections in the community. I would say participation is the biggest issue. Even in various school-minded activities, you just feel not a lot of students recognize how much fun it could be. So, but I'm not sure if there's really anything that can be done with that. It might just be the shift in the generation that's occurring. But yeah, if there's anything you would want me to.
No, Cooper brings up, I wonder if we should be, conducting exit interviews of all the graduating seniors. Some few simple questions of what you liked, what you didn't like.
Do we do that?
They do that.
Do we do that,
They
Marty?
have them come back.
I don't know.
Yeah, we do that, but I mean.
Sort of part of the 360-degree assessment process? Why not?
One final graduation requirement.
And don't let them,
No diploma.
don't let them kid you about being an engineer, because you just tell them that, okay, you may not like an engineer now, but sooner or later you'll be working for one. So
The world can't have too many engineers.
that's right. Can't have too many.
What I'd like to do is to thank you and then to publicly applaud you, because for 2 years you came here, and public speaking, as I mentioned a couple years ago, is the number one fear that humans have is public speaking. You, at 16, 17, came in, worked in a group, did meet, there was 50 people in the audience, the television was on, you were able to present, give us information, and had exchanges. So, thank you for your participation in forming us. We appreciate it, and we owe you appreciation.
Well, thank you all very much. It has been an honor talking to you. If anyone has any final questions before I disappear, I'll stay in contact through my father.
Oh, trust me, we're going to be checking.
Best of luck.
Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good. I know it's getting late. We'll get to business and we'll get ready to go. Let's look at the quickly, Maureen, the out-of-state for Ruggles Lane trip to Connecticut Science. Can you give us
I think Mr. Mullanian also has a presentation to make this evening.
I'll get to that, but I wanted to.
Okay, yes, I have just a very out-of-state field trip request, Ruggles Lane, grade 2, to the Connecticut Science Center in Hartford, Connecticut on June 17th. That would be the grade 2 students would be attending that field trip. Because it is out of state, it requires a school committee approval.
So move with the usual proviso.
Second.
Any further questions? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
And while it is listed, Mr. Chairman, in new business that we'll be doing some budget transfers this evening due to late receipt of some cherry sheet information, we have a few more, shall we say, things to add and things to subtract. So we will be requesting that the committee have another meeting in the month of May. I apologize for that, but probably the 28th of May, if at all possible, for us to take care of a few other items financially before our first town meeting. We have some budget reduction proposals that we'll be talking with Mr. Wiggler about, but the full committee would have to act on the budget on the 28th, if that's a good evening for the committee, as we would need 2/3.
Thursday the 28th. I know that budget is ongoing. Can we do the Thursday 28th?
I will wait for 2 weeks.
Anybody else? We wait 2 weeks. So we're tight for time, I think, as long as we have a forum, we'll keep people informed. So the 28th. Schedule. Mark, is that okay with you?
Yeah, it looks good.
7 p.m. Yeah. Seven. We have to try to accommodate because we're going to have a couple of people out, so let's do 7. We'll accommodate when we can, you know that. Try to do that. So 7, okay. I'd like to do the trip, the Washington piece, and then we'll go into our business.
Okay.
It's fair because we're moving right along. That would be the fair way to do it. Would you agree?
Oh, are you talking to me or to
Yes.
Evan? Because Evan's waiting to do his report as well as teacher advisory. It's fine with me.
So
I'm here for the
teacher
duration.
advisory, then we go to the trip.
Sure, I'll be very brief. I attended the NTA convention in Boston over last weekend, and you may have read in the newspaper about a resolution that the Teachers Association voted for, and that resolution was to request the school committee that you folks begin looking at providing information to parents on how they would be able to opt out of the MCAS test. At this point, my executive board is still looking at that, so it's not a formal proposal that I'm making to you at this point. But I would like to say now is not the appropriate forum to have a big debate on standardized testing. I can probably imagine everything that many of you would say about it and vice versa. It's just not the right place. But I would say that I think there's a pretty big revolution that is beginning across this country being led by parents, not teachers, about standardized testing. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out over the next 5 to 10 years, in my opinion. So just to update you on some interesting things that I was able to discuss and see some interesting guest speakers. It's just a really nice dialogue, and you know, I've always appreciated having a good dialogue here as well, and I'm imagining at some point there'll be some good discussions on standardized testing.
Okay. The Washington trip?
Sure.
Would you like the clicker?
No, you can click. I'll direct the clicker.
Okay, light?
We get the lights here, though. So we had.
Charlie, thank you.
What would you do without the light man?
We need an engineer for it.
I think we had about 160 kids on the trip, if I remember right. 4 bus loads and 20 chaperones. This is one of the outdoor sculpture museums outside, across the street from the Herschel Museum. So you see our kids walking around there. This is just one part of it. There's a whole big area they can walk around. And this day, the first day there was really a beautiful day. Every day, you know, chip in where
Cherry blossoms were awesome, right?
Yeah, they were. Okay, next one. This is the north side of the White House. That was, once again, the first evening there. We walked up from a few blocks down. And once again, we were actually pretty much almost the only school there for a while. There was not a great, you know, from all the controversy surrounding it, I didn't see any different police presence, to tell the truth. There was one cruiser parked off to the left there, not in the picture, but aside from that,
The next day, if I could, was when the disgruntled postal worker flew onto the lawn there, and it was actually an 8th grade teacher that filmed what you saw on the news. So we missed that by about 24 hours. That could have been fascinating.
We were at the museum, I think, when that happened.
Yeah.
Just Lafayette Park?
No, Lafayette's on the other side. Next, please. Okay, this is the JFK Memorial. And you can see all the trees are in blossom there. And this was, once again, it seems like when we go to Arlington, it rains. That's our rainy day at the very least of the trip. So, but, you know, walking up, very solemn, it's a solemn place, taking pictures there, etc. And further, if you, looking at the picture, if you were to walk down and towards us, then you would hit the other Kennedy graves, and then further down. Next, please. This is the Tomb of the Unknowns. This is one of the soldiers coming in. You see our kids up on the steps there. There are also a number of people on this side. This is the sergeant. They essentially have the sergeant, and then the rifleman comes in behind him, and there is the rifleman who is on guard, and the changing of the guards. And this is what happens The next one, please. So this is the changing of the guard here. Off to the left, you see it's like an amphitheater there. That's where a lot of the people sit. And the guard are behind an area here too. This is where the change goes on. Unique to sort of what we saw this time was after the changing of the guard, they had a couple schools who had their own little ceremony. And one I think was from Wakefield, Mass. I don't remember. It was Wakefield. Yep. Where they bring in their own wreaths, etc. And they have a little wreath ceremony there. And I have seen that a couple times before from Massachusetts schools too. So that was kind of an extra thing we saw. Next, this is a copy, I want to say, of the Statue of Freedom. This is in the Capitol Center, and this is an exact replica of what is on the dome of the Capitol. And those are my kids. That's my group, my 8 kids. That I was responsible for, standing in front of it. And the story here is that this was cast in 1861, 1862, and not the person who got the contract, but the person who cast it was a black slave in Virginia. And then, of course, during the Civil War, when the casting was done and the metal piece was put upon the dome in 1863, the black slave was emancipated, and he was also involved in setting it on the dome. So he cast it as a slave, but oversaw the placement of this on the Capitol Dome as a free man. Next. This is at the Library of Congress. This is kind of the second floor shot across, and the kids are at, these are my kids too, and they are at computer-generated touch computers, so that, like looking across, if you're looking at those, stained glasses, they can touch on this computer, which shows a picture of the entire thing, and it will come up who made the stained glass, what the stained glass is a picture of, what the meaning is. There are a lot. There's a whole bunch. You can touch the whole area, and straight across, there's another set of these computers, so that kids looking in our direction where we're at can do the same thing. And you can do it on the first floor also, but the second floor is where you see a lot of the mosaics, a lot of the stained glass. Next. So here's the Capitol Dome, unique picture. This is under construction, or reconstruction, I guess. And so sitting at the top of the dome, you do see the Statue of Freedom. And the unique thing there is that when they built the statue, this was the tallest, in 1863, the tallest point of Washington, D.C., and the statue faces east. So when the sun rises, the first thing, the Statue of Freedom, the sun hits the Statue of Freedom's eyes, and in D.C., that's the first thing that sees sunlight. Inside Botanical Gardens, this is at kind of the bottom of the Capitol. It's in this area, between kind of the bottom of the Capitol area and the Smithsonian area. And you can flip on to the next one. It's all enclosed. There are a number of side rooms. This is kind of the main area. Once again, I think this was the rainy day we were in there. But you walk in, it's so moist, it's so humid. You get to walk through a lot of areas. There's a desert area, there's a jungle area. You can flip to the next one again, Cheryl. And our kids really enjoy it. It's something you spend 20 minutes to a half an hour in. It's just kind of an enjoyable thing. And in one area, they have a lot of touch where they have plants. You can smell the plant and get the odors of different plants. Next. I don't usually take pictures inside the Holocaust Museum, but this is one. I've been through there 15 or 20 times, and I think people have been there more than once. Yet there's certain areas that they spend time in. This is the area I spend time in. It's actually on 2 levels. This is the upper level. And you can flip to the next picture, Cheryl. These are close-ups. This is a picture of a town that was on the Lithuanian border, the Lithuanian-Polish border, called Ishishak. It existed for 900 years. It's what they call the shtetl, which is a Jewish community, anywhere from 3,500 to 4,000 during its history. And these pictures were taken from like 1870 to about 1935. Over 100, 150 different families. And what's unique to me is my grandparents, my mom, I saw pictures from my great-grandparents. They're like the pictures in my family album look like these pictures of families, of people doing things. I think there's one more on this one, Cheryl. And You know, you stand there and look at these pictures, and when the Germans came in, for about 3 or 4 months, the town was kept intact, and then over a period of 2 days, they slaughtered everybody in the town. And when I look at these pictures, I kind of look and think that maybe one of the pictures I'm looking at, these people escaped. Maybe they weren't there that day, or they had left, because there were some people that did have relatives that they fled to the United States or other places. But you can look at videos, and I know DVDs, etc. But to me, these pictures are just, and literally are hundreds of them in this like 3-story area, and it's always had a big impact on me. This is the carriage at Abraham Lincoln Road to the Ford Theater the night he was assassinated. This was in the Museum of American History, and it was, I think this was the day before the day before the day of the assassination that we went through this building. So that's the actual carriage next. This is us around the tidal pool. It doesn't show the cherry blossoms as well, but this is probably the greatest cherry blossom viewing we've had there. We're coming down from the FDR, which is probably far in that corner, to the JFK area as we walk in. Of course, this is the tidal basin where all the cherry blossoms pretty much are. Next one, Cheryl. And then right from the Martin Luther King area, we're looking across to the Jefferson Memorial. Once again, cherry blossoms all the way through that area. This is our first night walk. You can see the kids have all of our lights that pretty much most of them put on their heads, and the adults too. And we're on the bus, and we're headed to the World War II memorial that night. Next one, please. So this is the World War II memorial at night. In the background, you see the columns. There's a column for every state, and I think there's one for Hawaii and Alaska, although they weren't states at the time. And there are a number of other things. This is kind of a nice area at night because it's a huge oval. You have the water there, but you can walk all around, and all around the oval there are different, there are sites or commemorations of World War II to the Japanese theater, to the European theater, and they're fairly well lit up, so it's pretty good for the kids to see. It's a good night walking area. Next, please. These are some of our kids. This is the Massachusetts column. And these are a bunch of, there were 2 of our buses who were here at that time, so these are a bunch of our kids posing in front of the Massachusetts column. Next, this is the museum. It's 5 stories, including kind of the basement. So they start you up the top, you take the elevator, which is across the way, and you walk around to the left as you're looking there. A lot of the exhibits are off to the left in different rooms, but there is exhibits all the way around. Ironically, the building before here was the National Hotel where John Wilkes Booth stayed the night before the assassination. Ford Theater is probably about 4 blocks down the road there, so it's just kind of unique that once again during the assassination of Lincoln, we were at a spot where there were some Lincoln members there. Next one. So this is a part of the antenna from the North Tower from 9/11. From the bombing, and if you look in the background, those are all the front page headlines of newspapers from around the world. The next day after the planes crashed into it. This is a segment. This is, I think, about a 20-foot segment of that antenna on the North Tower. There's a huge screen. It's like, I don't know, Dave, you think 30 feet by 20 feet or something?
Whole wall.
I mean, it takes up a whole wall on the 2nd floor, and they're doing newscasts. And while we were there, they were doing the Apollo landing newscast. They showed the landing on the right-hand side. We have the astronauts on the moon. On the left-hand side, you have Nixon, and they have the whole speaking. He's speaking to them. On top, you have a little of the languages going on. Other parts, Walter Cronkite was involved in this, some of the aspects of it, but it's an ongoing thing. You can stand there and just like watch this for hours, which is pretty cool. Except on the next picture, when they cut out to that, and what they did is took the camera, and those were our kids on the floor, mostly our kids, and so they have the live feed now. So our kids are looking themselves, at the 2nd floor of the live feed here. So it's kind of cool. Next one. So we had come out of the National Archives, and then there's another walk through outdoor architectural garden. And as our kids were waiting, the gathering, they got some ice cream, so I'm kind of staying near the ice cream truck. And this street person set up, got out his sax, and he started playing, and the kids just started gathering around and loved it. Some of the kids danced. He was like energized by our kids, and after he went through his whole show, he thanked them profusely. He said, "This is great. I love, when kids come here and enjoy this." And he was really good. It was a kind of a, these are the things that happen on the street. You just sort of go with the flow. And the amazing part is our kids just do go with that flow. I mean, they don't see this, walking down the streets in the Quabbin area. But, and the thing is, they're excited. They're respectful. It's like they see something that they know that this is kind of unique. This is something goes on in the city, and within a couple of 3 days, they adapted this stuff. They're adaptable kids. It's unbelievable. This is where setting up for our class picture, not the class picture, but the picture which I have here. And Evan, I think you want to give a little input on that.
Sure. So they do a panoramic photo, and again, you need to be an engineer to figure out how it operates. But the way it used to be historically is on the trip, Todd would start at one end, Todd Stewart, and the photographer gives a thumbs up when they're done photographing that section, and he would sprint all the way to the other end. So when the kids would get the photo, he'd be on both ends of the picture. So, Lee and I thought that it would be an excellent idea for Greg Devine to kind of take that role on. As Lee and I were talking about that, Greg was kind of disappearing a little bit, and he said, "I don't think I can get there in enough time." So I said, "All right, well, that's your choice." And then you'll see in this one that Chris Nozick and Mike Groner, two teachers in the middle school who are also personal friends with Todd, so that was kind of neat. They ended up being the ones to replace him. So that was kind of a little special thing.
It's they have the whole thing set up, and the camera is a movable camera, so they start going. And when they say go, because we're on the highest step, the teachers are on the highest step, and once they're going, they're behind us so that they're not in the picture until they get out on the corner. So it's kind of, we do 2 takes just in case. But yeah, we were thinking, we thought it'd be pretty cool if Mr. Devine was making it.
He disappeared on us.
Yeah, he did.
He doesn't really look like a sprinter.
So the last picture, we're going out the last day. We're heading out to the Lincoln Memorial and the Korean War Memorial. And I want to, the kids on my bus are great, but I want to point out, these kids were up at 5:45 in the morning. We had been on the go. We got a very ambitious day. We were on the go all day. This is now about 7:30, 4:45 in the evening. Do they look tired to you? They were, they're just going. We go 14, 15 hours a day.
The adults looked a little more tired.
Yeah. And you were looking really pretty peak in the last day.
Yeah, I was ready for a little rest.
Yeah. But, when we talk about, and people complain, and I'm not saying it's not an unjust complaint about, the kids are always on the computer, they're always on the handheld, the whole deal. I'm telling you, it's the environment, because you put the kids in the right environment and they're good to go. I mean, we used handhelds, but most of it was communication. My kids were very good, When we have rendezvous set up at a certain point or something, it's kind of like, you get there 5 to 10 minutes ahead, and if your kid's not there within 5 minutes, you might do something. My kids are texting me, okay, we're on our way here, or Mr. W, we're here already, and you get to, that's what they used it for. They weren't walking around with their hands in their heads in the handhelds. Not just my experience, but I think you guys see the same thing a lot.
I had a ball against it. Lee and I definitely didn't violate any open meeting laws, because by the time we were falling asleep, we were talking to one another anyway.
You don't remember signing some of those things for me?
But I want to, Maureen Whiting is like the unsung hero in this trip. I've done this like 11, 12 years. She goes without breakfast to make sure the kids get their medicine. She's checking on them. We had 2 really sick boys on our bus with GI issues. Thank God it was theirs. But she helped these kids out, and I'm going to mention some other people. Mark Castriata gave up a day to stay with the boys that were sick. Amy Pelletier actually washed one of the boys' clothes because he was in need of that. And, you know, it's so, everybody kind of pitched in, and it was just a real good, it was a real good feeling. And everybody was taken care of, the kids that were sick were taken care of. But Maureen does an incredible job. And like I said, she'll go without breakfast to make sure that everybody gets what they need to go to get the day started, so.
I didn't see all that fun.
You were on my bus.
I was sleeping in the first every time we sat.
And that was our, just one more thing, that was kind of, every year something, you know, sort of supersedes, or there's something, and the sickness was what hit us this year. It wasn't, we get kids who overeat or won't eat, or in the sun a lot and won't drink, and they'll get sick, and we treat it and take care of it within a few hours. It's usually good to go. But it was recognized pretty quickly that this was some sort of virus, and on the way down, that was the first kid showed signs of it, and then the kid he was sitting next to, I guess, was next, and he was his roommate. And I'll tell you, the National Institute of Health could come to Quabbin and see how we handled it, because you are right. I mean, we were right on top of that. Everybody was checking their kids. If a kid felt bad, okay, is it bad because you didn't eat, or were you in contact with these kids? And pretty much the whole trip was just the two kids, right? I mean, that was it. And they were, and Mike and Chris stayed with them. He did stay in their room. He volunteered to do that. It was, yeah. I mean, I'll tell you that in the 4 days that go on there, a lot of stuff happens. And most of it good, but every now and then we get our little crises. And I've been doing this for now 10 years, and you guys probably longer, but I am just, I'm just blown away how we handle a crisis. I mean, it's a lot of communication, a lot of cooperation, and it works. I mean, so far it's working very well.
One of the boys who returned with us, his father picked him up, and then it must have been quite late because 11, 12 o'clock at night, and the father asked him what his most memorable experience was of the trip, and he told his father that it was getting a really good-looking girl's phone number from Pennsylvania. It gets better, in the Holocaust Museum. So his father said when he had a full night's sleep, he needed to consider and reflect on that whole scenario.
Dr. Allen.
Yeah, I've read where kids need civics instruction, and they have to have more on civics. And usually it's from somebody in the Midwest who's talking about that. But as you see this, what a wonderful civics lesson it is on its own. It's our capital, it's the city, it's the Holocaust, it's the museums, it's the Kennedy, it's all those all those sorts of things. And education or instruction isn't to teach everybody everything about everything, but it's to pique their interest. This exists, that exists, and they can go search it on their own. They can find out more on their own. And when you think about it, it's the same thing with these kids that went to Holland, or the friends, all of this sort of stuff. Which is why this is a pretty damn good school, I think, because this is available. It's happening. It's the quality of the teachers. It's the interest and the caring of the parents and the community and all that sort of stuff.
While we're talking about the trip, I'd like to ask for approval for next year's trip. We're planning to go April 11th to the 14th, and we're looking to put a deposit on those dates.
Where are you going?
Back to DC.
Okay, so move with the usual acceptance.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor? Opposed?
We're getting this done then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
I know it's late,
to the
we need to finish our business, and thank you for the adjustments today, and again, we needed to hear the presentation. That presentation on the solar was now along, and it was a very good program. Good information. Thank you, Maureen, Superintendent of Schools.
The only thing that it's actually under unfinished business, but I'd like to just remind the chair, I probably don't need to, that I would love it if we could establish a task force for probably named, reviewing present and future school building use across the district, using our demographic study information. I know that Steve brought up the possibility of expanding that committee to include, the task force to include potentially, I'm thinking town officials, Steve, would that be where we start? Just, asking as we did for the regional agreement, and probably having a committee of say 15 or so, to really walk through the demographic study and to begin to look at the square footage in our district and to make some, recommendations finally to the full committee.
Again, last meeting, I asked if anybody wanted to volunteer to be part of it. Steve, Dave, Deb, Peg, and Lori had an interest, and so did Bill. Bill is willing to say, I'd like to work on, also in the backdrop of it. Bill was also helpful and instrumental in understanding mapping and looking at some of the redistricting or looking at that type of thing. So I'd like to have Bill too is also part of it as for the mapping piece, and that you said that you have an expertise and can
Do we have someone from Barry, because that...
Dave.
Dave, okay, great.
And Dave. Steve, Dave, Deb, Peg, Lori.
And I will make some overtures to the communities to see if we can get some folks to, which I'm sure we will. And administratively, obviously, there'll be a number of us who will serve as well. I will talk also with principals who might want to or be interested in serving with us, so that we can really begin to grapple with this matter. As we move forward, there's little question if the demographers are right, we have some work to do.
Assistant Superintendent?
I don't have anything this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Director of Administrative Services.
Since our last meeting, the subcommittee has signed payroll warrants 22 and 23, and account payable warrants 23A and 24A. And that's all I have.
No vote, no nothing on that? Okay. Subcommittee reports? Administrative review?
Nothing.
Audit?
Nothing.
Barry Building?
Just a couple of things. We had Brightergy in here, and a while back, since the subcommittee had kind of determined that we wouldn't deal with the elementary schools, and the two candidates were Ocam and Robles Lane because of the relatively new rules, I had passed along the original Brightergy proposal to the town of Barry, thinking that A, it would drum up a little goodwill, which we could use, and B, if they could offset some of their power needs, they're also a green community, by dealing directly with Brightergy for Robles Lane, and I guess Ocam would be welcome to do the same. So anyway, so they know about that, and they can deal directly with Brightergy. And I'd just like to give a shout out to a third grade teacher from Robles Lane, Kelly Franklin. There was a nice article in the Barry Gazette about her third grade class kind of reenacting George Washington's inauguration as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Forces during the Revolution. So another history, civics lesson, perhaps history lesson at a very young age.
Maybe we follow up, okay. Budget. Mark?
No, really, we haven't had a meeting since the joint meeting where we approved the $32,984,111 budget, which was only a 2.2% increase, but the assessment letters went out, and I know from Texas remarks the other night and some stuff I heard from Hubbardston, that there's a little bit of consternation over the 9 and 10% increases. I think the meeting on the 28th is important and really trying to take a look at that and maybe paring it back somewhat so it's a number for the towns.
I did personally call every town and explain to them that they're going to get an assessment letter that would be a little shocking. And also put a cover letter with the assessment which talked about that. So it wasn't a total surprise, and they knew and they know that we're going to continue to work on that. Cheryl and I have begun, and we have, I think, a multi-year proposal for the committee to review, and we will talk with the subcommittee chair to see if we would like to have a meeting of the subcommittee before we meet with the full committee, looking at some of those ideas. So we're certainly on it. The Senate budget has been reported out. We know that there is no increase in Chapter 70. There is no increase in Saturday transportation. There will be amendments filed on our behalf relative to transportation. How successful that will be is difficult to say. So at any rate, we continue to work with our Senate representatives, or I should say our senator, and so forth on this matter. So we're getting more numbers now, which help us understand revenue share. We should have comments as well.
I got an email just tonight that said the Senate budget did not join with the House on the full-day kindergarten grants.
Oh.
So they cut it from the Senate budget. Senate Ways and Means right now.
Really? Well, that's a shocker. They didn't, well, that'll go to conference committee minimally, and well, obviously, trust me, the cities will be all over this, because for them, this is huge. I mean, it's $100,000 for us, for the cities. I just cannot imagine how they can in any way justify the kindergarten rates, exceeding out the kindergarten. That is amazing.
Not from any kind of educational perspective.
No. I mean, so anyway, but we do have the best information we possibly can at this point for revenues, and we'll be better able to put together the reduction plans that we have to put together. We understand that. We'll be talking about our school choice numbers. We'll be talking about other revenues and ways in which we're going to be presenting you with an FY16 proposal, FY17 proposal, FY18 proposal, so that we look forward to, okay, what are we going to do over the next 3 years, minimally, potentially go into 4 or 5 years. There's a lot of moving parts, some of which we have control over, some of which we don't. We do have information from the Foundation Study Committee as to what recommendations they're going to make legislatively. They're going to say that the legislature has woefully underfunded special education and woefully underfunded health insurance. And that their recommendation will be for FY17 to try to provide some level of relief to the communities. Cheryl and I looked at how much we're over in special ed compared to what the foundation allows for us, the same situation in health insurance. So they will make probably a 5 to 10 year proposal, in other words saying, we owe you billions, but we'll start with 100 million. But understand, I know 100 million sounds like real money until you divvy it up among a gazillion schools. Yeah. So we're getting the best information we can, so we're really much better prepared now to talk to you about revenues. That is really tragic about the kindergarten rates. I hadn't heard that information yet, so that's something that we haven't thought about, Sarah, because really all indications were from everybody with whom we spoke that that money was going to be restored by both the House and the Senate. So this is very surprising to us. Unfortunately, there's another 100.
So the 28th of the meeting?
Yes.
Just going to quickly go out of order and then back to central office for solar presentation. Collective bargaining, are we all set at present?
Yep.
Planned facilities?
Nothing.
Policy and review? Nothing. Okay. Special education?
Next week
or two. And technology, we're regrouping next month for our committees, so technology meetings within that. Back up to central office.
Well, you heard the presentation. I mean,
do we as a committee feel that we think we would want to go take a look, go to the pond, go a little forward on this?
I think that, from my point of view, I mean, they present very well. It's a nice setup, a nice thing, but I'm ambivalent because I echo what Steve said. You know, if we can get 30% from someplace off without putting anything on our property, I mean, even if they can give us 36%, is it worth it? Now, having structures on our property, I think, I didn't get down, I was going to try and get down to Framingham, I just haven't had time to do it, at least eyeball it, was almost down there that they put up. But, you know, they look good, and we can talk to somebody from Quabbin and see where, you know, do that. And I think that it could make sense to go out and just go out for an RFQ, because we are not tied. We can get people to come in, you know, with their proposals, and we're not tied to give anything to anyone. But I don't want to put any burden on Cheryl to get that going. If, as a committee, we say, yeah, we could look at it, but really most of us aren't really for it. So I guess from my point of view, it's like if the committee feels they want to explore it in a serious manner, we can go and get the ball rolling on an RFQ, and see what comes in. I mean, they're not the only company out there. There are others out there that are doing this. But once again, we all in Cheryl has a lot of work to do, so I don't, if 6 or 7 people are sitting here saying, yeah, it looks nice, but there's no way in hell we want to do this, then I don't want the burden on her, even if they send a template that we can use a template for. Where our other RFQ is still good, the one we have the current contract under, because we're not going to quit under the original RFQ. We're just asking for the credits. We're just asking for a contract to get the credits, so we're not putting anything physical on it here, because we're going to put something physical on the parking lot. It's a whole new deal, so we do have to go out on the street. Cheryl, what do you?
Well, actually, you don't need to go out with an RFP for the net metering credits if you don't want to. What you can do is just you choose the vendor you want to work with, if they're going to give you the percent you want, and then there's 3 agencies that you have to defend your reasoning to go, which is a lot of school districts have done with net metering credits in the past couple of years. As far as putting out the RFQ for the solar, I mean, I don't mind doing that work at all. At least there may be a company out there that will offer us more. So don't use that as one of the reasons to say it's not good. I can do the job.
No, I think I am wholeheartedly in favor of, if, Cheryl can accommodate the work of doing an RFQ. They've offered virtually to do it for us, and as a matter of fact, they've got some rather self-serving language in a couple of parts, not surprisingly, but anyway, you can work that out. But so they've given us the template. There are cons that you can look at from an operational maintenance, potential from a maintenance standpoint. And supposedly that would be part of the deal. They have to give us references that we could contact in the Midwest of one of these 400 schools where they've done a lot of past work and how, the snow removal has worked, construction, how they've worked around those issues. But I think the educational component, if it's as good as they say it is, and again, that would be another thing that we could investigate as far as Brightergy is concerned, is a huge, element in their favor. And I think just the idea of having these panels out here in and of itself sends a statement to the rest of the academic community and the rest of the community at large that, hey, we're going with the program here, we're with it, yeah, okay, we can get the credits, but in the final analysis, it's got to be the economics have got to be good. But I say we put out the RFQ and see who else responds. And to date, I think we've only had one other net metering proposal. Has resolution ever come
I've
forward?
emailed them twice, and both times they said they're working on it, but I did last week in preparation for this meeting and say, you told me 2 weeks ago, and she said, yeah, we're working on it.
I think we need to work all facets of this revenue side of the problem here, both from an optics point of view with the towns and for our own edification here as committee members and representatives of the towns who are struggling. I think we have to do everything we can. We don't have a lot of options in that regard, and this is one of the biggest ones. And we're still waiting for the other one to come online. So.
It does seem like potentially found money.
Well, it is. It's your money. Well, we've been through this. I mean, it's our money. We're coming back to us.
I think we may have a political issue with having a town put the project on their roof, because we are a regional school district and each town does not pay for their electric bill. So if Barry is going to agree to put one on their roof, they would only be getting 36% of the credit really, because they couldn't get 100%. Remember, this is wired right into their building, so it may take up all the electricity that they would need, but that's not the way our budget is built, and that's not the way in which our regional agreement is written. So it may have some things that may not be able to be worked.
But I think we addressed that in committee, correctly. We kind of ruled out that they, in their original proposal, had included the 2 elementary schools. Okay.
But no, even if Barry were to do it on their own, on Barry Elementary, on Ruggles Lane School, okay, the district towns pay a portion of every expense of the district. So if the electricity generated from the solar panels on the top of Ruggles Lane go into Ruggles Lane, they can't get 100% of the credit off their assessment.
Yeah, but Barry may have other ways to write that power, lighting, et cetera, around the town. I don't know, wastewater treatment, sewage, et cetera. I don't know, it's up to them to deal with it directly.
Steve?
I agree with Charlie. I think it's something we should pursue. I like the idea of having the panels physically on site. I think it's much more tangible for not only for the students, but for the community to see that we're proactive. There are risks to mitigate. I think it's a win. I like to move forward.
I'll second that.
Second? Okay, stated, seconded. Further questions? Seeing, hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimous. I know it's 9:25 and I'm moving as fast as I can.
Apparently Ned doesn't think so.
You want the lights out again?
All right, FY15 budget update, anything there?
As I said, Mr. Chairman, we just received some further information. We hoped that we would have everything for you this evening, but due to some information we received today from the state regarding actual receipts in some areas, we have to make some other adjustments before we give you the transfers.
Okay.
We would suspect that if the 28th is a doable meeting time, that we would have all of that information prepared for you as well as a new budget scenario.
Okay, public comment? Seeing and hearing none. School committee concerns?
I just have a question about the open seat and covers. Does that screw us up on weighted votes and forums? Like, do we have to count that as a zero? Or is it non-existent because no one's ever been sworn in?
Well, the thing of it is, like, they couldn't get anybody who was interested. Now, whether they have, at this point, have someone who took out papers now, and only Bill?
I'm sure they'll be writing.
Well, our job is, I mean, I can't say our job, your job, yours is to try to get someone who's interested.
So we don't count that as a zero, but I mean, if we look at the regional agreement, we have 0.95.
I would suspect we will have someone that their election isn't until June. Okay. We'll have somebody like Steve.
Make sure you write somebody's name on the ballot.
Somebody
Pick the same
reasonable.
someone. Pick the same someone and go for at least 25 rights.
But if it doesn't have to go to ballot, there's a process in which.
Yes,
There's a process.
It will be
They did open
They
it
did.
up initially when the regional
Right.
agreement was signed, and they haven't gotten anyone.
So, and I'm just wondering, in the meantime, when we go through and we need a quorum on a vote, is that a zero?
No, we're just counting him as 1.3 still.
Okay,
Correct.
okay.
So we get someone.
Yeah?
I'll try not to be too long.
No, it's
I
okay.
just had, my son, when they handed out the trimester report cards, he was shocked at one of his grades. He said, there's no way, I just checked it recently, I don't know what I got on my final, but this can't be right. So we went back and forth, and finally last Thursday, after 4 report cards, and a lot of emails and giving guidance has been very helpful in facilitating with the teacher. What happened was the software issue. And the 100% on his homeworks was being factored in. So his grade actually was higher. And then we discovered that he never even got a grade in history, which he had taken. So that was another round. So I talked to a few teachers, and I talked to some parents, and they say it happens quite frequently. And Meg Cloutier had sent me email detailing that they had split, they had lumped together the 2 trimesters to be 1 grade, and that they're finding some difficulties with that, so that they are working on it. But it's just concerning, you know, you don't, I mean, these grades are, you know, it's like a credit report for, you know, us as adults. These need to go up correctly, and
Software issue?
I didn't know if you're aware of
Calculation
it.
issue?
This is the first I've heard. So
We
obviously.
we should hear a report update at the next meeting that this is, the next month of June or something, that this has been addressed and fixed.
I'm not certain which principal she spoke to. She did say she had spoken to the principal about it.
I'll
They
talk
are
with-
aware
I'll talk-
of it.
I'll talk with Meg.
Yeah, she was very good, I mean, very helpful, but it has taken my repeat, you know, I'm sorry to be a pain in the neck, but this still isn't right, this still is, you know.
Go ahead, yep.
Mrs. Chamberlain and everybody, at this point, just informational to you, the QRTA is running a survey with teachers on Aspen. And I would love to share that data with you. I know many teachers reached out to me concerned about, honestly, them looking bad for an issue that was a software issue. And
Do me a favor, share that survey with the superintendent, absolutely, and she'll get it to us.
absolutely.
Have you found discrepancies as well?
Yes, and Aspen has not been very popular with teachers for a long time.
And I think going on the trimester and the way that they split the grades, they're trying to begin to call that out.
Okay.
One other thing, I don't know if it's possible, but he said, I don't know what I got on my final. Is there a way
Well,
that
that's a
maybe
teacher issue.
students could, you know, when
Teachers
they
have-
move on to a trimester?
Teachers have the finals, I would suspect.
I didn't know if there's a way they can, you know, the kids would like to know what they got.
Well, I know when the technology, eventually they were moving towards a parent portal and things like that, to be able to have these type of things. So I know, at least now the issue is brought up, take a look forward at it.
I know teachers
And-
have the grades. It's just
Yeah,
that
you know, it's
teachers
a
ask
big
for
grade
it.
and the trimester's ended, so they've gone on to something else.
Well, I mean, what we've done in the past is we would have a day after the final, you know, and then you could go back to your other classes and get information. So there's ways we can do it.
Yeah,
Software,
hold on.
logistics in the schedule, so we can
Hold
work
on.
on that.
That's just why, you know, he's always been curious.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of teachers appreciate having the opportunity to have that final meeting with students as well, to say, here's why you got this grade, show it to them, because it's tough, you just give a grade, sometimes you don't see the kids again, and that's not a good way to end things, I agree.
Maybe I really bombed, but I thought I did well.
No doubt it's okay, superintendent is aware of it, now we'll
Thank you.
investigate and go forward on that.
And report back to us.
And report back to us, yes. Yes. Lee?
Yeah, just kudos to the high school drama club. I went to see the play last weekend. I saw Mrs. Musnicki there, the 25th annual, what's the name of the town?
Putnam County Spelling
Putnam
Bee.
County Spelling Bee, and these kids were awesome. They were so good. It's really nice when a kid can play two roles, and just with a brief change of clothes and maybe putting glasses on, you buy that role. Suddenly it's almost like there's a different kid doing it. And then, 40 seconds later, you see the boy or the girl in the other role, and I thought that was really good. The best part for me, though, is sitting right in front of us was the drama teacher, and I forget her name, fairly,
Jill Murray.
yes. And so watching her body language as the kids are doing her thing, and she's kind of, doing this was just as,
She's a second-year teacher when we with her.
I hear the kids really like her a lot.
I believe that was a student's capstone,
Yeah.
and that the music department was involved. Mrs. Gilbo and Mrs. Stokes did the choreography, so I think it was a learning experience for kids with all sorts of things, as well as tickets and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the music was very good too. I mean, they did that very well. But it was really awesome. It was 3 days. I just went for Saturday night. But well attended at least Saturday. And one Friday. He said it was very well attended Friday. So I don't know about Sunday, but it's great that a lot of adults and a lot of kids. There's a good mix of people going for that. So it was a good job.
Quick, thank you. Just a quick update. 2 things. Graduation is, well, we'll have a meeting before that, the 28th. Graduation is June 5th. Please, hopefully, as much of this as we can attend, that'd be great. And town meetings, we do have a schedule unless things have changed. Tuesday, June 2nd, Hubbardston. Tuesday, June 2nd, Oakham. Hardwick.
Oh, no, I said okay this year.
Hardwick,
I'll be there.
Saturday, June 13th. New Braintree, June 15th. Barry, June 16th. So just email us the schedule. Everybody has that as well. And then, is there a motion to adjourn? Second.
All set.
9:30.